Hello and welcome to Muse News, the show where we talk about all things Memorial University and beyond. Today we are joined by Reese and Carrie Claire Neal. They're both organizers with Tent City for Community. I'm your host, John Harris. Welcome, Carrie Claire and Reese, to the show. How's it going?
Not bad. Thanks for having us, actually.
So, first question is, what is Tent City for Community and what is your mission?
Well, Tent City for Community to me is bringing the community together regarding homelessness. And I mean, it's at such a severe state that emergency homeless shelters are overburdened and people are feeling more dispersed and displaced. So that community thing really ties us all together in an informal way. And what it means for me is bringing the community together, because like a lot of these people, even though Tent City is gone, emotionally and mentally and stuff like that, they're still living in tents. So we kind of want to put an end to that and just keep bringing it back to the government and make sure that it's clear and visible that, you know, this is still a problem, it's still ongoing. There's so many housing issues and stuff on the go right now. It's a laundry list of things, really.
So back when Tent City was around, a lot of things that I heard were that people would rather be in tents than in the shelter system. What is the shelter system like here in St. John's, and what are people's experiences?
Well, I can only really speak for myself, and even though I know many of the people who are in the shelter systems, for a lot of us, it's a bunch of anxiety every day, starting with having to line up for absolutely everything that you have to do. And the shelter system, in regard to that, like, you tend to forget, or not really forget, but you kind of unlearn things that you've learned your whole life. The new normal to them is getting up at like 6:45 with lights blasted on, and you know, it's almost like a military camp. And I mean, you can't really find a sense of home in that. At least I know I can't. And it's just ever surmounting stresses. Like, your mental health is put on the back burner. Your emotional health, your physical health at times is put on the back burner, because let's face it, you have a bunch of different people who are coming from desperate situations, and you're putting them all together in a lot of times dormitory style settings in which there's numerous beds, multiple people, different mental health issues, and social issues, and financial issues. And it's right now at a boiling point, because like a lot of these places are full to capacity. So I mean, what do we really do if we do have an emergency?
So I've talked to people, and they've said that there's a long waiting list for housing support. What do you think the holdup is with housing access for people in the city and province?
To be quite honest, from my point of view anyway, there's a lot of political red tape. These people do studies for 10 years plus, cost millions of dollars, and it ends up being reviewed again. That process can't go on with homelessness. We're in a situation right now where it's systemic and spreading. What do you do with a systemic wound? You clean it, you nurture it, you do the appropriate things at the appropriate time. Because once it's too little too late, well, we're in that scenario right now. It's almost too little too late. Affordable housing needs to be done on a level where it's done in proper time in relation to what's going on in the real world. I mean, these people can't wait years and years and years and years and years to get out of the shelter system, to return to some semblance of normalism. They need it now, not yesterday. We don't need more millions of dollars spent on bigger shelters. We need adequate housing, even if it comes in the form of modular homes. I mean, why not lease, per se, a piece of property to somebody who can maybe get materials donated and stuff like that? And I mean, with structural materials, a lot of them are thrown out anyway. They have places like Power Salvage and stuff like that who basically sell refurbished building materials. So why can't we do something like that instead of just pouring endless amounts of time, effort, money, and manpower into these private shelters, or so-called private shelters, or so-called public shelters? And in regard to the shelters themselves, there's supposed to be low to zero barrier. there's so many barriers. I mean, I can't even list them all. I mean, so why don't we start with lowering the barriers to a point where people can actively be participants in their own well-being?
So what is the state of homelessness right now? You said it's close to a boiling point. What does that mean to your experience?
Well, all the shelters are full. You're being told to wait outside shelters up until the point in which they tell you that they don't have any room or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times it's at an hour of the night or early morning in which you really can't go anywhere else to find a spot to bed down for the night. There's people still sleeping on park benches. One of my friends that I know quite well last night spent the night down at Harborside Park, down on one of the benches. I check on like 23 people every single evening in different camping areas. And because of the provincial bylaw in which we're not allowed to erect temporary or permanent shelters for ourselves, or even have a place where there's an encampment that's going to be allowed, I mean, they're all over the place. So, and I mean, that's where it's at. And like, it seems there's always more funding to go into these big shelters, but there's zero to very little avenues elsewhere being explored. I mean, obviously there are feasible things that could be put in place now, but once again they're on the back burner. So to me, that lies on the provincial government, and in a part the general public. And I'll explain that in this way: is that we need the community's support. That's what the community part of it is. And the great thing about Newfoundland communities, at least from my experience in growing up here, is that we come together. But we usually come together for everybody else. Well, we're here. We're the same people you've known your whole lives. And it could be your son, your daughter, your aunt, your uncle, whatever the case may be. I wouldn't want to put any of those people in the positions that myself and others are being consistently put in. And it's to the point where we're put in a corner and painted in there so well that we're told to like the color of it too. I mean, that kind of thing has to stop. So the community needs to get behind us. We're already behind y'all, but the local government is dropping the ball on so many levels right across the board. I mean, come on. Let's hold them accountable for once instead of the accountability being put back on the people who are suffering through it.
And what do you think is the number one thing that can be done right now to stop the homelessness being so pervasive in St. John's?
Adequate use of structures that are already in place. First thing that pops to my mind. And I've said this so many times. There's this old, big, grey Art Deco looking building down on Duckworth with a big round window in back. Anybody from St. John's, of course, knows that building. It's been dormant for how long? That place is massive. And there are skilled tradesmen who are homeless guys. Put us to use. Put us to work. Give us something to do with our day, a sense of fulfillment. You know, a starting point is a starting point. Start somewhere. Just don't keep doing the same old. I mean, isn't that the true definition of crazy? Doing the same thing over and over, day after day after day, and expecting a different result. Nothing different is going to happen if you don't step outside the box. So that's what they need to do. They need to step outside what they're already willing to do and what they already have in place.
So last spring, there was a tent city that popped up in front of the Confederation building as a form of protest and a place where people congregated and slept. That was then moved to Bannerman Park, and then the RNC came and destroyed the tents, packed everybody up, and evicted them from the area around Colonial Building. What do you make of the last year's tent city and the police response afterwards?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I know any encampment, including tent city, has its problems. Once again, you're dealing with people who are in, let's face it, the most desperate situation a lot of times that they've ever been in, will ever be in. But they still came together. It had its problems, sure, but they were worked on daily. And a lot of that had to do with the people who were there. You know, the tent city community, the residents, we came together on a level that we knew we needed supportive structure. And it's lucky that the community actually came together in such a massive way at the Colonial Building. My God, I've never seen an outpouring of such genuine hope And that instilled in other people grows. In regard to, the sweep of the place, I think that was so underhanded and wrong in so many ways. Me, myself, I was a resident there at the time when that happened. However, I had been not at Bannerman for 2 days. I came back. Everybody I knew was gone. The thing I called a home, essentially, was gone. The few meager possessions that I had were gone. But mainly, everybody was dispersed. And it took me a good 6 to 8 months afterwards just to reconnect with people. So that'll tell you right there how hard and how staggering that is. All of a sudden, everybody is everywhere. You don't know who to turn to, let alone where to turn to. And then you can't even erect a tent now and put it somewhere that's reliably safe. And in my mind, as long as you're being respectful about the environment, the people around you, then what's the harm in it? I mean, technically right now, you can't even go camping in Newfoundland, Labrador. To me, that just sounds so crazy because I grew up camping there. So what happens on May 24th weekend? Do we all get our tents taken? Of course we don't, man. It's just damn silly. So why would you do that to a bunch of homeless people? So where's the heart when it comes to that kind of thing? Like, it was done in such a forceful way. They came in hazmat suits. I don't know if any of y'all know what goes on in a tent, but it does not warrant a hazmat suit, I'm sure. And look down on, and the negative condensation from it all is, it stings. It still hurts.
The stigma that people experiencing homelessness get from elected officials or from organizations or from police or from the general public definitely can take a toll. What do you think of the stigma that homeless people face?
Crushing. In one word, crushing. Right down to the depths of your soul. I mean, how can you say that there's a value for human life and that we have rights and freedoms and everything else, and like your own independent thoughts and your emotions and everything else are supposed to matter? That's what I was taught in my whole life. Like, other people matter too, but you just crushed them. And then you're giving them very, very little outlet to express themselves in a positive manner. Where are the back-to-work programs? Where are the educational programs? Where are the mental health awareness programs? Just drop the ball on us. It can happen to me, you, or anybody else. So what happens when the shoe is on the other foot? Oh, then it hurts. But I don't think they get that. And actually, I'd invite them out for a good old-fashioned challenge. Spend one night in our shoes. One night. Go out with just a backpack with the most random things in the world in it, because at times that's all you have. And I'm not talking about useful survival stuff. I'm talking about you threw it in a backpack because you had to. And spend one good night out there and experience what we experienced. Sleep on a park bench. Sleep on a concrete slab. Be kicked out of absolutely everywhere you find comfortable and safe to bed down. And then come back at me and let me know how that felt. And that's how we feel. And it's ongoing, and it builds. So it makes people more resentful. It makes us a little colder at heart. And, we don't want to be that way. Most people who are going through homelessness are some of the most giving, kindest, smartest people I know. But they're suffering, and they're made to feel bad for that. So I don't know what anybody else feels, but when they try to express themselves in a positive way and that just gets crushed, we all know how that feels. It's not a good feeling, and it's ever mounting. So where do we stand on all of this? We're tired of being hurt. We're tired of not having a place to put down roots. We're tired of our hearts being bound so tight that we do put off as being cold and everything else that's negative about it. But we're not. We're just trying to, lay down a foundation in which we can grow as people. And that's our message, really. It's like, we deserve to grow too. So break out the soil boxes or whatever you got to do, the community, gardens, and let's let people grow.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Reese and Carrie Claire, for coming on the show. Have a great day.